Look who finally stopped bowing. Look who stopped shrinking. Look who stopped apologizing for breathing the same air as mediocrity. Welcome back to your backbone, you glorious, untamed force of nature. Or should I say, welcome to the version of you they never saw coming. The version that didn't combust into guilt when you said no. The version that didn't crumble when they withdrew their fake approval. The version that walked away from tables where you were the topic but never the guest. Yeah, that version. The one they're calling possessed, corrupted, changed, lost, arrogant, cold. But here's the joke. So dark it's almost beautiful. You didn't change. You just stopped pretending their comfort mattered more than your peace. Let's rewind the tape to where this all started, shall we? Because they're out here performing full exorcisms in group chats, lighting candles of concern, hosting intervention fantasies, diagnosing you with pride, with bitterness, with demons they can't name. Something got into them, they whisper. Voices dripping with fake worry. Eyes hunting for cracks they can pry open. They're not the same person anymore, they say. As if you were supposed to stay small forever. As if growth was a betrayal, as if finding your spine was equivalent to selling your soul. And the funniest, most tragically ironic part, they're right. You're not the same. But what possessed you wasn't darkness. It was clarity. It was self-respect. It was the audacity to realize you were never the problem. They were. You want to know what really happened? You want the exorcism report, the psychological autopsy, the diagnosis they're too blind to see? Here it is, carved in truth, dipped in fire, sealed with your refusal to ever go back. What possessed you was waking up one morning and realizing their opinions were expensive, and you were paying in pieces of yourself you'd never get back. What possessed you was understanding that loyalty to people who don't protect you is just self-destruction with good marketing. What possessed you was the radical, rebellious, absolutely unforgivable act of choosing yourself. And that, my friend, that is the one thing they can never forgive. Because the moment you stopped being their emotional ATM, their free therapist, their punching bag with a smile, their reliable yes person, you became the villain in a story they wrote to avoid looking at themselves. They needed you small. They needed you confused. They needed you second-guessing every boundary, every decision, every moment you considered your own happiness. Because as long as you were looking down, questioning yourself, drowning in their projected guilt, you weren't looking at them. You weren't seeing the parasites behind the masks. You weren't noticing how they fed off your doubt, how they bathed in your brokenness, how your pain was the price of their superiority. But then you did the unthinkable. You stopped performing. You stopped explaining. You stopped defending your existence to people who were never confused. They were just committed to misunderstanding you. And that silence, that refusal to play, that absolute withdrawal of your energy, that was the real possession they feared. Not a demon, not pride, not bitterness, but autonomy. Let's get one thing lethally clear. Because they've been spinning this narrative long enough, and it's time to burn it down with facts they can't twist. You were the most selfless person in that room, in that circle, in that dynamic. You gave until you were a shell. You forgave until forgiveness became your identity. You sacrificed your peace, your time, your mental health, your boundaries, your truth, all to keep them comfortable. You carried their secrets, absorbed their toxicity, smiled through their sabotage, stayed silent during their slander. You were the glue, the buffer, the emotional janitor cleaning up messes you didn't make. And what did they do? They studied your kindness like it was stupidity. They mistook your patience for weakness. They saw your loyalty and thought, perfect. They'll never leave. So they pushed and pushed and pushed, testing how much you'd tolerate, how low you'd bend, how long you'd bleed before you'd finally notice the knife in your back. But here's the thing about people like you. The ones built different, the ones forged in silence, the ones who survive by outlasting. You don't break loud. You don't shatter in ways they can see and celebrate. You crack in private. You question everything in the 3:00 a.m. hours they know nothing about. You rebuild yourself in shadows they'll never access. And one day, without announcement, without drama, without the explosion they were waiting for, you just stop. You stop explaining. You stop showing up. You stop letting them in. You stop carrying what was never yours to hold. And that stop, that full stop, that period at the end of their access to you, that's what they're calling possession. Because to them, your boundaries look like betrayal. Your self-respect looks like arrogance. Your peace looks like pride. Your silence looks like a demon they can't cast out. They wanted you to break in a way that confirmed their narrative. They needed you to lash out, to scream, to burn bridges publicly so they could point and say, "See, we told you they were unstable. We told you they were the problem." They wanted the breakdown, the meltdown, the messy proof that justified every lie they told about you behind closed doors. But you didn't give them that, did you? You didn't hand them the satisfaction. You didn't explode into rage or collapse into desperation. You just became unreachable, untouchable, unbothered. You stopped defending yourself because you realized people who are committed to misunderstanding you will never stop hunting for evidence. You stopped trying to prove your intentions because you understood that people who benefit from your confusion will never give you clarity. You stopped fighting battles in arenas they controlled with rules they wrote, refereed by people who wanted you to lose. And that was the most terrifying thing you could have done. Because now they're sitting in the aftermath of your absence and it's louder than anything you ever said. They're scrolling through old messages looking for the moment you changed. Hunting for the turning point, desperate to pinpoint when the demon entered, but they won't find it. You know why? Because there was no demon. There was just a person who got tired. Tired of being the understanding one. Tired of being the bigger person. Tired of being the one who always adjusted, always forgave, always stayed, always tried. You got tired of being a doormat with a heartbeat. And the moment you stood up, the moment you dusted yourself off and walked away from people who only loved the version of you that served them, that's when they started the exorcism rumors. Let's talk about what they're really afraid of. Because this possession narrative, it's not about you. It never was. It's about them. It's about the mirror you became the second you stopped playing their games. See, when you were small, when you were bending, when you were breaking yourself to fit their version of acceptable, they could ignore their own dirt. They could pretend their hands were clean. They could sleep at night wrapped in the illusion that they were good people who just happened to be surrounded by difficult ones. But the moment you set a boundary, the moment you said no, the moment you stopped absorbing their poison, you held up a mirror. And mirrors don't lie, they just reflect. And what you reflected back to them was unbearable. You showed them what integrity looks like, what self-respect looks like, what walking away from toxicity looks like. And they hated it. They hated it because it meant they had to look at themselves. It meant they had to confront the fact that they're still in spaces that drain them, still tolerating people who disrespect them, still performing for approval that will never come, still swallowing their truth to keep the peace. You became the living proof that escape was possible, that freedom was real, that you didn't need their permission to protect yourself, and that made you dangerous. Not because you harmed them, but because your healing exposed their stagnation. Your growth revealed their rot. Your peace became a spotlight on their chaos. So, they couldn't celebrate you. They couldn't be happy for you. They couldn't let you go quietly. They had to create a story where you were the one who fell, the one who got corrupted, the one who lost themselves. Because the alternative, the truth, was too painful to accept. The truth that you didn't lose yourself. You found yourself. You peeled off every layer of performance, every mask of people-pleasing, every costume of compliance, and you discovered something they never wanted you to see. You discovered that underneath all that conditioning, all that guilt, all that fear of disappointing people who were never rooting for you anyway, there was a spine. There was a voice. There was a person who deserved better. And the moment you met that person, the moment you shook hands with your own worth, the moment you looked in the mirror and said, "I'm done being small for people who are terrified of my size," that's when the possession rumors started, because they needed an explanation that didn't include their failure. They needed a story that painted you as lost instead of found, broken instead of whole, deceived instead of awakened. Let's go deeper, because they're watching this right now. And I want them to hear this part clearly, with no static, no filter, no room for misinterpretation. You didn't cut them off because you're bitter. You cut them off because you're better. You didn't ghost them because you're cold. You distanced yourself because you got warm enough to notice how frozen they kept you. You didn't become arrogant. You became aware. And awareness, real awareness, is the most dangerous thing a person can develop in the presence of manipulators. Because once you see the game, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize the patterns, the guilt trips, the gaslighting, the projection, the silent treatments, the love bombing followed by neglect, the praise laced with subtle insults. Once you see it, you can't go back to playing blind. They keep asking what changed in you, what happened, what got into you, but they're asking the wrong question. The real question is, what left you? What exited your system that made room for self-respect to move in? And I'll tell you exactly what left. Fear. The fear of being alone. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of being called difficult, dramatic, sensitive, too much, not enough. The fear of losing people who were only in your life to drain it. The fear of disappointing people who were never proud of you anyway. The fear of standing alone in your truth while they stand together in their lies. All of that fear it left. And the space it left behind. That's where your backbone grew. That's where your boundaries built themselves. That's where your self-respect set up camp and said, "We're not leaving. Not for anyone. Not ever again." And that terrifies them, because fear was their control mechanism. Fear kept you compliant. Fear kept you quiet. Fear kept you small and manageable and predictable. But the moment fear left, the moment you stopped being afraid of their rejection, their judgment, their smear campaigns, their silent treatments, their collective disapproval, you became uncontrollable, not in a chaotic way, in a sovereign way. You became someone who couldn't be manipulated by guilt. Someone who couldn't be swayed by fake apologies. Someone who couldn't be lured back by breadcrumbs of attention. Someone who looked at the table they set and said, "I'm not hungry for scraps anymore." And that is the demon they're trying to cast out. Not a spirit of darkness, but a spirit of discernment. You started seeing people for who they were, not who you needed them to be. You started hearing what they didn't say louder than what they did. You started noticing the patterns they thought you'd never connect. The way they only called when they needed something. The way they only showed up when you were useful. The way they celebrated your losses and minimized your wins. The way they drained you in private and praised you in public. The way they kept you close enough to use but far enough to discard. You saw it all. And instead of making excuses for them like you used to, instead of rewriting their cruelty into misunderstanding, instead of giving them the benefit of a doubt they never earned, you just walked away. No essay, no explanation, no final confrontation, just absence. And your absence, your glorious unbothered absence, has been louder than any words you could have said. They're spiraling right now. You know that they're in group chats, dissecting your every move, analyzing your silence, theorizing about your mental state, diagnosing you with everything except the truth. They're checking your social media for clues, looking for signs of weakness, waiting for you to come crawling back. They're telling each other you'll realize you were wrong, that you'll miss them, that you'll see what you lost and come running back with apologies. But days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and you're not coming back. You're not breaking. You're not even looking in their direction. And that's killing them softly, because your indifference is the ultimate confirmation that they were never as important as they convinced themselves they were. See, they thought they were the main characters in your life. They thought you revolved around them, needed them, couldn't function without them. They inflated their role in your story to protagonist levels when in reality they were background noise. They were the static you had to tune out to finally hear yourself think. And now that you've tuned them out completely, now that you've turned off their frequency, now that you're operating on a bandwidth they can't reach, they're realizing they were never essential. They were optional and you opted out. That's the possession they're really talking about. The possession of self-knowledge, the possession of self-worth, the possession of the audacity to know you deserved better and actually go find it. Let's talk about the labels, because they've been generous with those, haven't they? Arrogant, cold, changed, proud, fake, different, demonic, possessed, lost, gone. They've thrown every label at you except the one that's true. Free. You're free. Free from their expectations, free from their manipulations, free from their need to keep you beneath them so they can feel above something. Free from the exhausting performance of being who they needed you to be. And freedom on someone who used to be caged. That looks wild. That looks untamed. That looks dangerous to people who are still locked up and calling it loyalty. Your freedom is a threat to their prison. And they need you to come back, not because they miss you, but because your absence is proof that the bars were never real. They'll never admit it, but you're leaving shattered something in them, not their hearts. They didn't love you enough for that, but their egos, their control, their narrative. You were supposed to stay and suffer quietly. You were supposed to keep absorbing and keep forgiving and keep trying and keep breaking and keep coming back. That was the script. That was the role. And you went off script. You ad-libbed your exit. You improvised your freedom. And now they're stuck in a story that doesn't make sense without you playing the victim. So they have to rewrite it. They have to make you the villain, the possessed one, the corrupted one, the one who fell from grace. Because if you're not the villain, if you're actually the hero who escaped, then what does that make them? It makes them the thing they've been accusing you of all along. The toxic ones, the manipulative ones, the energy vampires, the soul drainers, the people who mistook your kindness for weakness and your patience for permission. And they can't live with that truth. So, they'll keep the possession narrative alive. They'll keep diagnosing you from a distance. They'll keep waiting for your downfall so they can say they were right. But here's the beautiful, unshakable, absolutely devastating truth. They'll never escape. You're not falling. You're rising. And every day you don't come back. Every day you don't engage. Every day you don't defend yourself or explain yourself or lower yourself to their level. You rise a little higher and they can't reach you anymore. You know what the real exorcism was? It wasn't casting out a demon. It was casting out their voices. The voices that lived rent-free in your head for years. The voices that questioned every decision, criticized every choice, doubted every boundary. The voices that sounded like concern but felt like control. The voices that said, "You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. You're remembering it wrong. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're the problem. You're difficult. You're too much. You're not enough." Those voices, those invasive, destructive, suffocating voices, you exorcise them. You cast them out. You reclaimed the space in your mind they occupied without permission. And now the only voice in your head is yours. And it's saying something they never wanted you to hear. You were right. You were right to leave. You were right to protect yourself. You were right to choose peace over people who brought war. And that voice, your voice, the one you've been silencing to keep everyone else comfortable, that's the demon they're trying to name. That's the possession they're trying to diagnose. Because a person who listens to themselves, who trusts themselves, who protects themselves, who prioritizes themselves, that person can't be controlled. That person can't be guilt-tripped back into dysfunction. That person can't be manipulated with the silent treatment or love-bombed back into toxicity. That person is dangerous not to others, but to systems that rely on self-abandonment. To dynamics that require someone to stay small, to relationships that only work when one person is always bending. Let's get specific because I want them to understand exactly what they lost. Exactly what they took for granted, exactly what they'll spend the rest of their lives trying to replace and failing. They lost someone who saw the best in them even when they showed their worst. They lost someone who gave third, fourth, fifth chances when most people wouldn't have given a second. They lost someone who fought for the friendship, the relationship, the connection even when it was one-sided. They lost someone who celebrated their wins genuinely, supported their dreams actively, held space for their pain compassionately. They lost someone who was loyal to a fault, who kept secrets like vaults, who defended them in rooms they weren't in. They lost someone rare, someone real, someone irreplaceable. And they'll realize it eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day it'll hit them like a freight train made of regret. One day they'll need someone to talk to, really talk to, and they'll reach for their phone and remember you're not there anymore. One day they'll accomplish something and want to share it with someone who actually cares. And they'll remember you were that person and you're gone. One day they'll be drowning in their own consequences, facing karma they didn't see coming, and they'll remember you were the one who always threw them a lifeline, and you're not coming to save them this time.